Yet, if you were to ask a champion how they were made, they would tell you that they were made in moments over time. Think about that. In moments over time. It was showing up early and doing the work. It was helping a teammate out when they needed to find that edge. It was spending time watching the tape that they needed to watch to find where they could just get a little better, right? Moments over time. Maybe in this case here with you all, maybe it's about miles over time is what I think it is, quite honestly. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to celebrate with you, to be brought into this family. I can't help but see the camaraderie out in the hallway when people are showing up and checking in, and just the smiles and the hugs as everyone's gathering into today. And I want to just say thank you for the opportunity to be part of this celebration, celebrating this incredible milestone that each of you have achieved. And not just for yourself and your team, but I want to call out too, it's also about what you've done for the people who have been around you on the road, that you've helped keep safe by being intentional and focused on safety, that you won't even know, you've never engaged with, you've never connected with, they don't even know, but because you were focused on excellence and safety, they got to where they were going safely. Absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity. Now, what I'd like to be able to do is share, if you don't mind, maybe a moment in time in my life, right, that I think brought me here, a moment in time that I think destined me to be working around racing and high-performance vehicles. And I know we've just met, and you're like, Mike, really, destined? That's a little bold, man. That's a little bold, right? But just walk with me if you would, okay? So let me just set the room up here. Are people here familiar with the Shelby Cobra? Okay, all right, so we got some awareness on that. How about a gentleman by the name of Carroll Shelby? Okay, if you're not familiar with Carroll Shelby, you'll want to watch this incredible movie called Ford versus Ferrari, right? So what I'd like to do is take you back to December of 1970. My dad had just bought a 65 Shelby Cobra for $1,500. Right? $1,500. And he had that car in the driveway, and he was so proud. I mean, he had all of his buddies coming over, and they're all motorheads, and they're just walking around, and he's like a proud papa, just like, take it all in, boys. Take it all in. Right? He had that car for 3 weeks, and my mom says to him, hey, honey, guess what? I got some great news. My dad says, what's that? She said, I'm pregnant. Dad says, whoa, this is incredible, it's great, all right, wonderful, okay. And my mom says, yeah, but you've got to build that extension on the house for the baby's room. Where are you going to get the money for that? And Dad says, well, don't worry about that. I'll sell this, I'll take care of that, I'll work some overtime over here, not a problem. And my mom says, oh, that sounds interesting, but why don't you take a walk with me? Some of you know where this is going, right? They walk out into the driveway, and Mom takes a lap around that Cobra, and I can only imagine my dad sitting there going, no. And I can tell you, they've been married over 50 years now. He's a smart man. And she said, I think I found the money for that baby's room right here. So my dad went back to the guy he bought it from and got his $1,500 back. Okay? All right, so now fast forward to I'm in college, minding my own business, by the way. I didn't ask for any of this, right? I'm minding my own business, and I get a phone call from my dad. Hey, Mike, I'm watching Barrett Jackson. Guess what? Cobra just sold for $225,000. A couple of years later, hey, Mike, guess what? Watching Meekum. Just saw another Cobra, $425,000. He would literally introduce me to his friends as, this was my son Mike, the Cobra. All right? I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. I didn't ask for any of this, right? I'm minding my own business, for crying out loud, you know? So fast forward several years, I'm working in the motorsports industry. And I happen to be at the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in Talladega, Alabama. And who was being inducted into the Hall of Fame that year but Carroll Shelby. And I'm at the reception the night before, and who do I see standing by himself in the corner? Carroll Shelby. So I gather up everything I have in me, and I start to walk over to him, and I said, Mr. Shelby, And he looks at me and he says, "It's Carol." I said, "Okay, Carol, can I tell you a story?" So I tell him the story. And he's giving me a look like, "Son, if I had $1 for every time I heard a story like this, I wouldn't have to build another car in my life," right? But he was gracious, and he heard my story. And we talked about it, and he said, "Your father must have been a smart man if they're still married." I'm like, "Yeah, they still are. I don't know about smart, though, right?" So anyway, he grabs his photographer, and he gets a picture. And I don't think anything else of it. Well, fast forward 3 more weeks, and all of a sudden at my office arrives this package with the Carol Shelby logo on it. I'm like, "What in the world is this?" And I open it up, and what's inside? That picture of me and Carol Shelby that he took that night. But what's awesome is in it was a note to my dad, and he said, "Hey, the kid may not be worth as much as the Cobra, but he turned out okay." What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I didn't ask for it. So over the last 25 years, I have had the incredible opportunity to work around championship level drivers and teams. And during that time, I watched them just constantly building, fixing, restoring, innovating these high-performance vehicles, their race cars, to be in tip-top shape in the race, to be competitive, to be there when they needed to be there in the race, to be competitive. Right on cue. To be competitive, right? But it hit me during that time that there's another type of high-performance vehicle out there that needs the same type of building, fixing, restoration, innovation. And that's you and me, right? See, I purposely believe that we are all designed. We've been beautifully designed, intentionally designed to be high-performance vehicles in this life. I truly believe that. And I see some heads nodding out there, so I know you all are feeling that too, right? And that's being a high-performance vehicle for leadership and solutions and creativity, safety, innovation. Yet I also believe it's to be high-performance vehicles for love and compassion and grace, right? Bringing people together. And I also want to be really clear. When I say that we've been designed and built to be high-performance vehicles, I don't mean that we've got to be out there sacrificing our health or relationships to get there and be that type of vehicle. See, I went down that road for years of my life, okay? Years of my life, only to find out one day at 40 years old to end up in the hospital in the ER room and the doctor say, "Mr. Mooney, you just had a cardiac event." Now, I've been to a lot of parties in my life and a lot of events. You don't want to be at the cardiac event, okay? I will tell you that. And some of you might be able to relate to that. But it's just an awareness, it's a switch, it's a nuance that is not about that. It's about operating in a way that you have courage, the courage to act, the courage to do the right thing when no one's looking, the courage to protect others, the things that you're doing today. And that's why each of you in here that we're celebrating, as well as the loved ones that are celebrating with us, I do believe we're all high-performance vehicles. I truly do. Now, I've got good news and I've got great news. Who wants to hear the good news? All right. So the good news is this. Good news. The ones we're celebrating tonight, you were joining an elite group of professional drivers. The ones that are setting the standard, not only within your organization and team, but more importantly within the transportation industry. That alone needs to be recognized and celebrated. Yes, we get another whoop for that, right? I love it. Absolutely. Well earned. Well earned. Want the great news? Okay. All right, good. Good. You don't even know what it is yet. Here it is. Y'all aren't finished yet. Your best is yet to come. See, this is an opportunity now that in this role, in this position, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts and a couple of ways that champions have shifted the way that they've seen themselves operated, connected, and worked with their teams to help not only inspire and motivate, but more importantly, they recognize that there were people who paved the road ahead for them, and now they have to look in their side views and realize they're paving the road for who? Others, the rest of their team. And that's what I want to share with you all tonight in the time that we have together, okay? Does that sound good? If that sounds good, I want to hear let's go. And listen, okay, you're ready to go. I love it. This is great. Let's go. I usually say I give us one shot and count of 3. I don't come back and say, oh, try it again, please. No. We're Frito-Lay. We show up proud. We're loud. We're ready to go, right? So if you're ready on the count of 3, I want to hear let's go. 1, 2, 3. Let's go! Oh, love it. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to a time when I found myself in Victory Lane, covered in confetti, champagne, and all the championship goodness, face to face with Jeff Gordon. And Jeff Gordon had just won the NASCAR Series Championship. And it was my job to get Jeff from pit road up to one of the suites for the champion's toast. So as I'm sitting there face to face looking at Jeff, Jeff looks at me and goes, okay, Mike, what do we do now? Well, in that moment, I didn't realize it, but his crew chief, Ray Evernham, was standing behind, kind of eavesdropping, and he goes, what do you mean, what do we do now? We go back, we get better, and we do it again. Right? Exactly. But Jeff looks at me and he goes, yeah. I look at Ray and I'm like, yeah. And then Jeff goes, yeah, but Mike, where do we have to go? I said, man, I got to get you into this van and up to the suite. Let's go. Time's wasted. Thanks, Ray. We got to run. Right? So here's the point. In the moment of celebrating the greatest achievement they could, and as a team and champions, where was Ray's head? The next one. How do we go back, get better, and do it again? Because they realized that what got them there isn't going to take them to where they want to go next. Correct? Now, we also recognize that there's time to celebrate, which is what we're doing tonight and tomorrow, right? So we've got to make time to celebrate the wins. So here's the question, right? If you look at this car up here on the screen, what do you see? Yeah, I hear a lot of people say it's a badass car. That's what I see. Right? But we often see the car, and I know in the racing world that the car was the product of our work. It was the sum total of what everyone was doing to bring a product to the racetrack. That was our race product every single weekend. And we can't get confused with what we bring to market as a final result or product with how we got there. Got me? Follow me on that? We have to recognize that there were more parts to the whole. So when Ray looked at that race car, he saw hundreds of ways to innovate that race car. He knew that breaking it down into parts and pieces to get better was going to be the key. And that's what he did. He looked at that race car and said, what can we do to innovate on all these areas? Because see, Ray understood the difference between giving 100% effort versus 1% daily improvement. Catch me on that? We're all giving our effort, 100%, but can we find that 1% of daily improvement? That's the question. That's the question. Where's that 1%? Grady, where are you, Grady? Can we give Grady a hand, please? He's helping me out tonight. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I brought props, and I thought it would be kind of, I can't bend down to get that. Grady, thank you so much for your help, man. You were awesome. So here, I want to show you an example of what Ray talked about with finding that 1%, because he challenged his team. He didn't take on the responsibility all himself. He went to his team. And one of his team members said, hey, Ray, what about the hood pin? And you say, what about the hood pin, Mike? The hood pin is kind of a non-sexy part of the race car, quite honestly, but it has an important purpose, all right? The hood pin's sole purpose is to make sure that the hood of the car actually stays attached to the car when the drivers are going 200 miles an hour. Okay, kind of important. It doesn't fly back in their face, right? But because in the industry, these hood pins were placed like this, if you can see that, right? They're placed horizontally. One of the engineers said, well, Ray, what if we just turned that hood pin like that? Right? What would that do? Well, the aero team said, well, that would make us a little slicker in the airstream, wouldn't it? Absolutely it would, right? So a 1%er took it even further. His mechanics and fabricators said, hey, Ray, we've got all these nuts and bolts on the car. All this extra thread on here. What if we cut that extra thread off? Lost some pounds of weight. What do you think that would do? They found pounds of weight with unused threading on here. Gave it to their aero team. It was like Christmas for those guys. Like Christmas, right? Take it a step further. In the center picture there's a window netting. Window netting, very important. They had custom window nets made with smaller holes. What do you think that would do on super speedways? Less drag, right? So it wasn't just one piece. It wasn't just 1% that made the difference for them. that actually, if you look at their statistics, this is what I want you to check out here, okay? Forget the guy in the blue shirt. Somehow he wrestled his way past security and got in there with a picture with Jeff Gordon, all right? So I want you to look at this, though. Over 5 years and 188 races, forget about the championships, forget about the wins and the poles. Look at the top 5s and the top 10s. That's the power of consistency. That's the power of finding the 1% in the vehicle, finding it across the board and pulling it together. The things that someone might have been embarrassed to even bring up and say, maybe this is an idea. What can we do with this? Because Ray recognized the power of the cumulative effect, the compounding momentum that would have for that team and organization. As a result, they both ended up in the Hall of Fame for NASCAR, right? So here's my question to you as I ask you and I challenge you right now. This is celebration, part challenge. I'm going to be real with you because we want to take things from this experience to bring it forward to the organization. What's your hood pin? Can you think about the 1%ers that you learned and put into play over the course of your driving, those millions of miles that helped you perform just that much better? And put together with another 1% and another 1%. Maybe it was the way that you approached safety. Maybe it was the way you used one, if not all, of the 5 keys for safe driving. Maybe it was a way that you took care of yourself, your health and your well-being while you were on the road. What are the 1% that you can pass on to the drivers that are looking up to you and looking to you for guidance as this example of what right looks like, of what success looks like, of what champions look like? How can you help them? How can you help accelerate their learning curve? That's my challenge to you as the drivers. Would you please take inventory of that? Think about that. What are those 1%ers that you can share that's going to help? And help the learning curve of progress. You see, there's a myth in progress. I had the opportunity to work for Jack Roush, who's a Hall of Fame team owner. And he dismissed this myth for me one time. We were talking about developing drivers. Jack is well known for taking young drivers with big talent and turning them into championship-level drivers themselves. And he said, Mike, there's a myth that we've bought into, that this is what progress looks like. It's this upward, continuous trajectory of success and learning and all these great things, right? He said it's a bunch of crap. It is. He says progress actually looks more like stairs. Think about it. Drivers learn a lesson. They put it into play. They learn from it. They figure out what works for them. And then, boom, exponential growth. Then they learn new lessons, new skills, put that into play, figure out how it works for them. Then what? Boom, exponential growth, right? So here's my question for you then. As you're mentoring, as you're training this next generation of driver coming up, how can you help them on their stair step? How can you be a catalyst for them? How can you be that accelerator, right? Accelerating excellence for them on their road of progress, on their time of their growth to reach a goal that to them maybe seems so lofty, but you're sitting here doing it right now. Whew, what an opportunity, right? What an opportunity. All right, so 1%. The next part I want to talk to you a little bit about is over the last 25 plus years, I've been to close to 865 races during that time. I have some really cool people to hang out with. The Rock, you can see there, I actually had beer, had a banquet beer with Pete Coors, which is kind of cool, just had some great experiences. But one of the things I loved the most was when our sponsors would come to the track and they'd ask me these questions. And I want to share some of them with you. And if you know the answers, let's raise our hand. And if you don't, now you got some NASCAR knowledge. And you could be that person when the races are going on and say, did you know? All right, so here we go. All right, here was the first question that I would get asked. Mike, are those real headlights on those cars? Are they glass? No, they're not. They're not. They're decals. They're all decals on there because obviously they're getting beat up and you don't need glass on the racetrack, right? Here's the other one. Oh, please tell me, with all the cars getting beat up and smacked around, tell me there are airbags in there, please. What do you think? We got grooves. Okay, well, we got some NASCAR fans here. I like it. Good, all right. So you're right, no airbags, because usually the car comes in, the pit crew does their work in about 10 seconds or so, or it takes longer for them to fix the car, and off they go, not messing around with the bag and all that stuff, right? Don't need that. Okay, here's the other one that I loved. Oh, Mike, guys are in the car for hours at a time. Where do they go to the bathroom? Where do they go? Okay, now, we've had some drinks tonight, so I'm glad no one's yelled out. I've heard some interesting ways that these guys go to the bathroom. But here's the reality. If they do, they just go. They just go. But the reality is that they'll lose anywhere from 7 to 9 pounds of water weight every single race. So that's usually not an issue. But here's the fun fact. If you look at the picture up here, okay, there's a reason why the majority of the drivers don't wear white suits from the waist down. All right? You don't want to come out in victory lanes ready to cheer and you got the stain of shame sitting there, it's all over the internet, right? You don't need that. Here was the other question that I would often get. Mike, who's got the most vital job on the race team? And they say, well, and I'd ask them, well, what do you think? Is it the driver? Is it the pit crew? Is it the crew chief? Is it the team owner? So let me ask you guys, let me ask you all here. Who do you think, and we'll do a show of hands, who do you think has the most vital role on the team? Is it the driver? Raise your hand if you think it's the driver, as I ask a room full of drivers. And not one of you all raising your hand. Come on now. Show some pride, huh? All right, so not much for the driver. How about the pit crew? How many of y'all think that the pit crew is the most vital? Okay, there you go. And that's usually from the spouses and the family. Absolutely, you're the pit crew. You are. How about the crew chief? How many think comes? Okay, more for the crew chief. Gotcha. How about the team owner? What do you think the team owner? We got a couple on that, right? So here's the reality. Is that you can have a driver who is hitting their marks every single lap and just getting it done on the track, no question. You can have a pit crew that's getting lightning fast, consistent pit stops done, in and out of pit road, not a problem. You can have that crew chief who's got a gut of steel making these decisions in real time. And you can have a team owner who's got all the funding and all the right team and the people all in the right places to make it all happen. But here's the reality, friends, is that if you can't keep that car on the racetrack and in the race, none of that matters. None of that matters. So the reality is the most vital role on the race team is this person called the spotter, right? So the spotter is an incredible role. Not many people know about the spotter. The spotter stands high atop the racetrack property with binoculars and radio communication to that driver, so that when the driver is focused on their goal, their sole goal of either protecting position, gaining position at speeds over 200 miles an hour, inches away from the bumpers of the cars in front and behind them, it's that spotter's responsibility to tell them what's happening in their blind spots, right? And the places that the drivers can't see, that if they were to get up into, can not only take them, but others completely out of the race. Completely out of the race, right? And if you think about it from the driver's view, here's a picture at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right here, and the drivers typically have 2 mirrors on their cars. They've got the one in the center, and then they've got their A-post mirror on the other side. And right now you can see it, and things look pretty clear, right? But what do you think it looks like when they're going 200 miles an hour? Yeah, you can't. It's vibrations, it's colors, it's blurs. You can't really see. And you say, well, Mike, can't they see their peripheral vision, turn their heads? Not really, because of the way NASCAR set up the safety within those race cars with the head and neck restraint systems, right? They can't turn their heads the way they used to. So I have a good buddy of mine who's a spotter and has been spotting for many years in NASCAR. And I asked him, I said, Brett, do me a favor, man. Tell me what it is that you do. And put it into words for me of what your role is. And I love the definition that he gave me here. And I put it up on the board very specifically. Very specifically. He said, we are a safety device for our drivers. They want to win, and it's our job to help make that happen. In order to do that, they have to trust our every word. It's like doing trust falls at 200 miles an hour, right? Which I hate trust falls anyway, but at 200 miles an hour, I don't want to do it. But look at the words he used, very intentional words. It's not, hey, we're a buddy, I'm a teammate, I'm a friend, we get a beer together. What are the fourth and fifth words used there? Safety device. I'm a safety device. So I'm going to show a video to you all that Nate's going to cue up here in a hot second that shows, if you're not familiar with the spotter relationship in the job they do, I'm going to bring it to life for you real quick, okay? But when we're done, I'm going to ask you what you heard in that video. I want you to hear the way they speak, and I want you just to kind of think about that. And I'm going to ask you, we're going to have some folks here that can help us share on the microphone, but I'm going to ask you to kind of tell me what you heard in that relationship that's different and unique by the words that were used, okay? You ready? Here we go. All right, pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. Maybe some haven't seen that before. This is a different way of looking at how that sport comes to life. It's not just guys sitting there going, left turn, left turn, left turn, right? Well, you might think they do. They just kind of bang into each other, but that's not it. There's more to it. So what did you hear in that communication? Raise your hand and let me know. What did you hear? This person right behind you. Hang on for 1 second. We got a microphone so everyone can hear. We got someone coming over here. What did you hear?
The relationship that you have with your drivers.
Yeah. The relationship that was there, right? That strength, that trust. What else?
Well, you remove obstacles. Somebody's out there for you. You're not there by yourself. You know, they're driving. Somebody's here for you. We're here for you.
That's right. So you're focusing on what you've got to get done. You know you've got eyes that are helping you along the way. How about the gentleman right over here?
And it's the same thing she said, just a great relationship.
Wait. What she said? That's what she said? Wait a minute.
She said that. It's like a friendship that they have. They trust one another.
Yeah.
And, and then he lifts him up, and then he brings you back in when he needs to be brought back in.
That's right. Love that. Thank you. There's another one over here. Oh, I thought we had a couple. Did they all go? Where's our microphone? Okay. On this side? Yep. Gentleman right over here. What's that? Communication is important. Absolutely. So I heard in there what you said, and thank you very much. What I heard in there from you is relationship matters, right? It wasn't just about being a coworker or colleague. There's a friendship. There's a sincere interest in their safety, their well-being. There's a understanding of what they're saying and what they need to hear as a result, right? All powerful, very, very powerful ways of looking at that relationship and being a spotter. So I'm going to take you back to the day when I started at Roush Fenway Racing with Jack Roush. And I went to the Daytona 500 in Daytona in Florida. And I go to meet Jack at his motor coach because we had sponsors that were coming in. And Jack comes out and he goes, Mike, welcome to the team. I couldn't think of a worse time for you to be with us. Like, what? Right, oh great, let's go racing. This is fantastic. Now, the reality is that when I joined the team in 2013, this championship level organization was on an incredible downslide on our performance on the racetrack. We couldn't get out of our own way during these years of time, right? And for us to do that and build the cars that we were building, we realized we had to change the way we were building them. What we were putting on the track, the work product, was not reflective of what we needed to be doing out there as a race team, a championship race team. So if you look at this vehicle up here, and we built all those race cars from steel tubes all the way up to what you see in the finished product going to the races and what you see on TV. And in order to build those cars, one vehicle would be touched by more than 200 pairs of hands and go through more than 10 different departments in the race shop in order to become finished. Do you think there has to be a level of trust for that driver to strap in and believe that the person who said they were going to do something actually did it? Yeah, absolutely. Here is the challenge, though. I put up a couple of the departments that we had and the car would go through. You see a few of them up here, right? The challenge was that the way that we built the race cars was the car would move around from department to department to get work done. What kind of environment does that look like to you when you see that up there? Yeah, it's siloed, isn't it? It's siloed, it's cut off. It doesn't exactly scream communication, it doesn't exactly scream collaboration, teamwork, does it? So our competition director came up with a radical idea, and we didn't get time to hit pause on the racing season. We had to keep going, we had to keep building cars, we had to keep showing up at the race. But what he decided to do was actually leave the car in one place and have the departments come to it. Think about that. Slightly inconvenient for the departments, but what kind of environment did that create? Yes, collaboration, team, people actually like wanting to share ideas and being okay hearing that. We used to have this joke at Roush. It was called the Roush salute. So if Jack asked what happened, what went wrong, this was the salute. Wasn't me. But in this environment, we said we've got to take a page from what we're doing on the racetrack and bring it into our race shop. We've got to look at the way that we're operating in a way that we're looking out for each other, not just ourselves, not just our department, not just my team and people. We are greater than that. We is greater than me. I'll say that again. It's worth repeating. We is greater than me. So where did that get us at the end of the year? We actually went out and won the Xfinity Series championship that year. We put it into practice, we put it into play, and we won a championship as a result. Here was a team that couldn't find its way around the track earlier, but suddenly the magic in the relationship, the magic in the communication changed everything for us. We became spotters for each other. We recognized where our blind spots were. And we stood up and we stepped into that for each other, for our team, because we is greater than me. Now, you might think, okay, Mike, being a spotter, you're thinking these big moments in time. It can also be in the small moments. So I'll take you back to when I was doing PR for Darrell Waltrip. Darrell Waltrip's a 3-time series champion, Hall of Fame driver, was a Fox sports analyst for a number of years. And I happened to be doing his public relations during his 25th anniversary. And we developed and came up with this chrome car. All right, maybe some of you remember that back in the day, that chrome Western Auto 17, right? I see a couple of heads nodding, so that's awesome. So one day, Darrell and I are at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we're walking this car down pit road, and he looks at me, he's like, Mike, I love this car. I said, I know, D, that is a badass looking car. I'm telling you that right now. He's like, it is. I said, so what do you like about it, though? So he says, well, Mike, you know what I like about this car? Man, it just blends into everything around it. It just blends in. It's like one of those chameleons. Chameleon? I said, what are you talking about, chameleons? And he goes, you know, like those lizards that kind of blend into everything around it, the chameleons. And I'm like, D, who else have you told this to? And he looks at me, he's like, no, you're the first one. I'm like, oh, thank God. I said, D, it's chameleon. And he's like, no, C-H, chameleon. I'm like, no, man, it's with a K, I swear. He's like, you're not messing with me, are you? And I said, man, I will mess with you about a lot of things, but the idea of sending you down pit road to go talk to reporters and talk about your great chameleon car? No way, brother. No way. Right? So we can be spotters for people in the small moments too, but will we be present? Will we be intentional? Will we have the courage to act and speak up and say something? Right? That's the power. That's where it is, okay, friends? That's what I want to challenge you with, is to think about where and how can you be a spotter within your organization, within your team. And I'm not just talking about the technical side of being a spotter and helping people see blind spots, the ones who are coming up behind you, the ones that are looking at you going, I want to be like that person. I want to be like John. I want to be like Thone. I want to be like these million-mile drivers. But I can't get there. That just seems so unattainable. So I'd encourage you that you can also be a spotter for the words that you place in their minds, right? Giving them that moment of encouragement. Because I am sure, and I'd have to think that you would say, look, if you were asked, you are no different than any of the other drivers that have come up and come through here. The only difference is that you made a commitment to excellence and to show up, and a commitment to safety, and also the belief that you could and want and will be better. Am I right? Am I right? Yes, exactly. They can do it too. Help them recognize to show up. Be present, be intentional, operate with excellence. They too can be something that you are today, because it's a dream for many of them. All right? What could that moment be for them? We talked about moments over time, right? So I'm going to share a story with you about Ernest Hemingway. I know you're thinking, what's the racing guy talking about Hemingway? It should be like Hemi engines, right? So I could talk about those too. I could talk about them all day long, don't worry. But in this particular book called The Sun Also Rises, one of the characters in the book goes bankrupt. And his buddy says, man, how did you go bankrupt? And he said, 2 ways. Gradually, then suddenly. Right? Gradually, then suddenly. If we think about crisis situations and when they pop up, it's rarely lightning in the bottle, isn't it? It's oftentimes the culmination of graduallys, aren't they? Maybe it's a mismanaged expectation. Maybe we didn't communicate clearly. Maybe we didn't follow up on what we said we were going to do and live into our part of the relationship. But I think maybe you pick up my vibe. I'm hoping you're picking up my vibe that if that can happen in the negative, can it also happen in the positive? Let's say, can it happen in the positive? Yes, it can happen in the positive. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you didn't get here with the beautiful placards on your lanyards with the 1, 2, 4s on there. 3s. You right? I didn't forget you. I didn't forget you 3s. Number 3 is the number 1 in my heart. But you didn't get here suddenly, did you? No. You got here gradually. So how can you keep imparting that in? What can that gradually moment be for the rest of your team, for the 1 years, the 3 years, the 5-year drivers that are coming up along? What can you do? How can you play that role? How can you be that catalyst, that inspiration, that champion for them? That's what it comes down to, the champion for them. So I'm going to wrap with a story for you all here before we go to the fun, start riding bulls and lassoing Jacob and all that good stuff, right? So I had the opportunity years ago to be doing work with Junior Johnson. And if you're not familiar with Junior Johnson, he is a Hall of Fame driver and team owner. He actually got his start racing up by running moonshine in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. Actually got caught by the Federals. He was put in prison for that, had the record. Ronald Reagan pardoned him out of that, and they made a great movie about him too. So, very cool guy, very, very amazing, absolutely amazing individual. So I'm in the car with him driving to an event, and I'm looking over at this guy, and I go, man, I said, Junior, you've been successful in all the things that you have done in this sport. I want to be successful as my career keeps going on. Is there some magic bullet? Is there something you can share with me that could help me be as successful as you have been in your career? And I held my breath. And he looked at me and he said, Mike, actually there is. There is. And it comes down to a breakfast plate. I said, breakfast plate? I said, okay, you got my attention, but what does that have to do with excellence and being a champion? Now, some of you may have heard the story, but when you hear it from Junior Johnson, it takes on a whole other level of meaning, right? He said, here's the breakfast plate right here, bacon and eggs, Mike, bacon and eggs. He said it took 2 animals to make that breakfast plate. You got the eggs. You got a hen that's laying eggs, and what's the hen going to do tomorrow? What? Lay more eggs. And what's the hen going to do the day after that? Lay more eggs. And the day after that? More eggs. So you know what? He said that hen was involved. Now, that bacon, that hog was committed. That hog was committed. Whether it knew it or not, it was committed. So that's the question I always ask myself, Mike. He said, I'd ask it of myself or I'd ask it of my team. Are you involved or are you committed? And he said, Mike, I always stacked my team with a bunch of hogs. I absolutely did. So let me ask this real quick. Can I have all the drivers that we're celebrating please stand up? Please stand up. All the drivers are celebrating. Yeah, give them a hand. Give them a hand. That's right. It's awesome. Congratulations to each of you. You're awesome. Well, have the back table. Okay, the back table, you guys are stacked back there. Now, hey, folks, you know what you're all looking at right now, right? You're looking at a room full of hogs. I'm telling you, and that's a compliment. It'll be the one time that being called a hog is going to be a compliment. All right? And that's what we're looking at right now. Each and every one of you committed to this purpose, committed to this team and mission. And I congratulate you for that, for being champions of this organization and the industry. Now, I mentioned that we were all designed to be high-performance vehicles, right? I mentioned that early on. You remember that. Here's the challenge. Sometimes it's hard for us to pull it out, right? Sometimes we got to reach deep. Now, keep standing up. Turn around. We're right over here. Come on now. Here we go. So what I want you to do is you are thinking about being that high-performance vehicle, having the courage to speak up, stand up, act, do the right thing. I'd like you to to reach in. And now take the stance with me here, folks. Take the stance with me. Put your hands on the wheel. Come on. Put your hands on the wheel. I know some of y'all been drinking. We're not drinking? No, come on now. Put the hands on the wheel. All right. Oh, it looks good out there, doesn't it? That wheel feels good. I got a bunch of hot rods in front of me right now. There's a bunch of hot rods right here, right? I'm going to take a deep breath. Let it out, and I want you to promise me that as you continue to be champions and you take that high-performance vehicle inside of you, I want you to drive it like you own it. All right? Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. Stand up. Give these guys a hand, please, for their work, for their effort, for their energy. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you tonight and help kick off your celebration week. Right, it's celebration week, isn't it? So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to turn it back over to Jacob now. He was going to come back up.